Hey, Calvin here, and these are my AirPods Pro 2. And these are my Sony WF-1000XM4s. And if you know anything about me, I really like Apple products, especially their sound stuff. And I had used the AirPods 2, the Gen 2s, for the longest time. Those were just the regular in-ear AirPods before switching over to the Pros, the Pro 2s. And in a lot of ways, I was really excited about these. I thought it was going to be a really big step up in terms of sound quality, noise cancellation, battery life, etc. And in a lot of ways, they were. However, when I started using them, there were a few annoyances that just built up over time that eventually pushed me away from these and towards the Mark IVs from Sony. And in a lot of ways, these two earbuds are pretty similar. They have great sound quality, really good battery life, great active noise cancellation. But after a few months of using these AirPods Pro 2, there was just three specific things that really pushed me away from these and towards the Mark IVs from Sony. Firstly, the touch controls on the AirPods Pro 2 were removed and instead substituted for the capacitive stem that you have to interact with. Now, in theory, that sounds great, but in practice, it just didn't work out well for me, especially when I'm being pretty active outdoors or I'm just going to the store or whatever. It's so hard to just try to find the stem and press it to play the next song or answer a call, etc. It was way easier on my original AirPods where I could just tap anywhere on the AirPod and that would just change the song or pause and play or do whatever I wanted it to. Secondly, the stem, the capacitive stem on the AirPods Pro 2 is good when you're stationary. Now, when you're out and about and you're trying to do things like change the volume, it's very difficult to try to find that stem and position your finger and then move it up and down to try to change these things. And the biggest annoyance is when I'm on a call, your earbuds, whenever you wear them for a long period of time, they tend to shift around in your ear. So every once in a while, I found myself trying to adjust the AirPods back into their original location. The problem was because the AirPods are so small and that stem is so sensitive, I would end up hanging up calls by mistake when I'm simply just trying to readjust my AirPods. One time on a call, I hung up on a person 3 times and I had to explain to them, hey, I'm not trying to dismiss this conversation. My AirPods are just very annoying right now. And finally, the third thing, there was some sound customization that was lacking on the AirPods Pro. I know you can adjust a few things with the equalizer, but it's still lacking in terms of how much you can customize the sound. And because of those annoyances, I ended up just opting for the Sony Mark IVs, the in-ear Mark IVs. I do have the over-the-ear Mark IIIs, which are really, really good. And so these were really, really attractive for a lot of reasons. So let's get into the review and talk about some of the components that just, I think for me, made these a way better choice than my AirPods, unfortunately. Okay, starting off, sound quality. Both of these earbuds have excellent sound quality. They're really, really good, considering how small and how pocketable these things are. So starting off with the lows. Now, the AirPods have really good bass, but the Sonys have just a little bit better bass. And that's really impressive because the Mark IVs use a 6mm driver, whereas the AirPods use a 11mm driver. So the driver on the AirPods is actually bigger, but I think the bass just sounds a lot better on the Sonys. Now moving on to the mids. The mids are really, really good on both. I didn't really notice much of a difference between either the AirPods or the Sonys. I thought the mids were just really, really good. Now, when we're talking about the higher frequencies, so things like treble, I will say that both earbuds are fairly similar for some of the higher frequencies, and so you'll get things like the vocals being very, very crisp and clear. However, I will probably give the point for the treble over to the Sonys just because you can customize them and make them just a little bit more clear than the AirPods. And speaking of sound customization, this is where the AirPods were lacking. So the reason I ended up getting the Sonys is because of the Sony headphone app. So this is an app where you can connect your Sony earbuds or your over-the-ear headphones and you can customize the sound. And this was really, really attractive for me because I really like messing around with the sound and making certain tones for different types of music that I listen to. Now, when you install the headphones app, the equalizer has a bunch of presets that you can toggle through and just listen to different types of sound. And you can also customize your own preset, which is really, really cool. So the custom one that I use is a little bit of the higher frequencies are just adjusted a little higher. And so you get a little bit more clarity with the vocals. And I do bump up the bass a little bit to +5. And I think that combo works really, really well. And it just gives me such a cool listening experience with the Mark IVs. Okay, let's move on to noise cancellation. So these earbuds are really good at noise canceling, and the AirPods Pro 2 uses the H2 chip for better sound quality and just better processing for a lot of reduction in noise sound from your environment and whatnot. And I believe the Sonys use a integrated processor V1 is what they call it for essentially the same thing. And so both chips do the same thing when it comes to active noise cancellation. What they do is they utilize the microphones on the earbuds and they monitor that, and then it gets processed through the chip, and then that adjusts the sound levels to basically cancel out a lot of that external noise. And both chips do this dynamically, so you could be in one sort of environment, walk over into another environment, and those will always be adjusting the sound quality to make sure that it cancels as much of the outside noise as possible. So in terms of active noise cancellation, I think both of them do a really, really good job. However, I will give the noise cancellation award to the Sonys, and here's why. The Sonys use a high density foam tip. And so when you place those earbuds into your ear, that foam naturally expands to fit sort of the shape of your ear canal. This is really, really handy because even if you don't have active noise cancellation turned on for the Sonys, they still block out a lot of noise just passively through the foam tips that they use. Now the AirPods Pro 2, they don't do a bad job of passive noise cancellation. They do have sort of this plastic rubbery tip, which works really well. However, I've noticed that the foam tips just work a lot better. Okay, so earlier on in the video, I talked about touch controls and how they were removed and substituted on the AirPods Pro 2 for that weird stem. I missed the touch controls where you could just tap anywhere on the earbud and it would do what you wanted it to do. Now, the Sonys is really cool because you can customize both sides of the earbuds to have different touch controls. So you can customize these taps on the Sonys for things like ambient sound control, volume control, and playback control. And that's really helpful. Now, the custom touch controls that I use for my right earbud for the Sonys is playback control. So that's the 1 tap, the 2 tap, and the 3 taps for either playing a song, moving on to the next song, or going back. And on the left earbud, I have the ambient noise cancellation setting. So if I just tap on the left earbud, it'll switch between active noise cancellation and ambient sound. Or there's this really cool feature where if you just press and hold, it will turn on quick attention. And what that does is it allows the noise cancellation to be turned off, and it picks up all of the ambient sound and it shoves it into your earbud and lets you listen to your environment around you. This is so helpful for situations where you might be in a conversation with someone and you don't necessarily want to take the earbuds off all the time to listen to the person. Instead, you can just tap and hold and it will turn on ambient noise. You can have a conversation with somebody and then remove your finger and it'll go back to active noise cancellation. So that feature is called quick attention and I think it's just really cool. I don't think AirPods Pro 2 has something like that, at least not at the time of making this video. I know they have conversation mode where if you start talking, the AirPods recognizes that you're in conversation. It will automatically do it, but I just prefer having it done manually whenever I want. Okay, so you probably know by now that both earbuds have microphones attached to them. Both microphones on the AirPods Pro and the Sonys are really, really good. I didn't really have a preference for the sound quality on either one. However, I will just play this little clip so you can judge for yourself and decide which one you might like better. So both of these earbuds have a really good microphone quality, and I'll just let you decide which one you prefer between the Sonys and the AirPods. And I'll test out the sound quality by saying one very controversial thing. And that is, I think the live action for Aladdin was far better than the original. Now, I'm not saying that the original animated version is bad, it's just Disney did a really good job with the live action. That, and I also think Nina Masood was the perfect pick for Aladdin. Okay, lastly, battery life. This is really important if you're always using earbuds and you're constantly traveling or you're just moving around a lot. You want to make sure that these earbuds have really, really good battery life and that they can charge very quickly. So battery life for both of the earbuds was about the same. So they're marketed as around 6 hours for one single charge. And the Sonys actually came in during like my testing, it came in about 5 hours of battery life. Now this was with noise cancellation turned on, the bass being boosted up a little bit. So all of these sound customizations that I had, it was obviously eating up a little bit more battery life. And so on paper, the Sonys will give you a little bit less in battery life. However, you're going to get better sound quality. Now, the cool thing with the Sonys is that you can just plop them back into the case for about 5 minutes, and that will give you 60 minutes of additional listening time. So it wasn't really a big factor for me because I don't want my earbuds in my ear for 5+ hours anyway. Now, they aren't perfect, so there are a couple things that I wish were better. One is that I wish they had the slide volume controls like their over-the-ear counterparts. So on the Mark IIIs that I have, you can just slide up and down on the panel and it'll adjust your volume. Now, the Sony Mark IVs do have a touch panel, but it's just very, very small. So you have to like tap and hold, and that adjusts your volume. And it's not bad. It's just the over-the-ear Mark IIIs, I think the sliding up and down just is a lot better. So maybe that can be fixed with a firmware update at some point, but that's one thing I wish they had. The other is that quick attention feature that I was talking to you about. So when you tap and hold the left earbud, you can go into quick attention, which just turns on ambient noise, reduces the ANC. I wish that was a little quicker. So I did notice that when I tap and hold, I have to wait about probably 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. And I know that's a short amount of time, but when you're just trying to talk to somebody very quick, you want that feature to turn on a little bit quicker. So those are just a couple of the things that I think could have been better on the Sonys, but overall, I really, really love these things. Okay, so in conclusion, if you are looking for convenience and you're already in the Apple ecosystem and you just want a pair of earbuds, I think the AirPods Pro 2 are really good. They have great sound quality, really good noise cancellation. I will say that you would probably just need some time to adjust to the stem, and you might also want to consider if that's going to bother you when you're either actively working out, going for runs, and you're trying to play around with like the volume or like playing the next song. It could be an annoyance for you. It's just something to consider. However, if you don't mind straying a little bit away from the Apple ecosystem and you want something that is a little bit more intricate in terms of touch control, customization, sound customization, and a little bit thumpier of a bass, I would highly recommend the Mark IVs. And most of the times you can find the Mark IVs for way cheaper when they're on sale than the AirPods Pro 2. So that's also something to consider. But anyway, I will be using the Mark IVs from here on out. I think the Mark V should also be coming out in the next year or so, so I'm pretty excited about those. But as of right now, I will just say goodbye to the AirPods for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned. And I don't feel bad because I really, really like these things. And I think you will too. All right. Thanks for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one.